Welcome over to the PodAskew Podcast. I am CJ, and with me, as always, is my hetero life mate, Rico. What's up, man?
What's up, dude? You look like you were, really holding back laughter on that one.
I'm fucking exhausted, dude. I'm bordering on delirious right now, so that's probably why.
How much coffee have you had today?
Well, okay, I've had 20 ounces of coffee, but only 14 of those have been regular, so.
That was good. You got me to snork.
Coffee?
What do you call it? Snorking?
Snarking.
Snarking.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Because I usually drink 50-50 on coffee because caffeine will fuck with me a little bit. So I usually do like a 50-50 blend of coffee. But being that I'm working off 4 hours sleep right now, I pushed it over.
Yeah, you push it to the limit?
Yeah, a little bit. Limits! Anyway. Jesus Christ. Okay, so, first things first, I wanted to tell you a quick story about our buddy Fumes from the stream in Facebook.
What's Fumes up to?
Fumes is, dude, he's doing massive fucking moves. Most of them I can't talk about because he's asked me to hold those off until he announces them, and that's fine. But that's not what I wanted to bring him up about. I wanted to bring him up because you and I are both animal lovers. Me more dogs, and you, I think, mixture because of Dino and Sugar. But anyway,
I'm a cat person that likes dogs, but
that's okay.
I'm not the type who would go out and get a dog. I'm the type to be like, let's get another cat.
Right, and I'm the type that says go get a dog, but I'm not out for negativity on cats or anything.
Nice save. Go ahead.
Thank you. Fumes was, I don't know the whole story, so I'm gonna conjecture part of this, but he was basically walking down the street and found a stray that apparently has been out there for some time now, and just said, you know what? Fuck it, and took it home with him.
Stray dog.
Stray dog, yeah. Okay. And I should have said that. Thank you. Took it home with him. Cleaned him up.
Like a homeless dude? Like he took home a stray? Like
yeah, he's got a stray homeless dude. No, he found a dog. I don't know what it is. Neither does he right now. Last time I talked to him, he was taking it to the vet to get it, determine what breed it was. So the last time I talked to him, I have not heard yet. So I don't know what it is, but it's a white, beautiful dog, and he cleaned it up. He's feeding it, and I don't know what the rules are in Chicago, but I think he basically, as long as it's not chipped, I think he can basically claim ownership of this animal at this point. So, so he's
good
taking
for him.
Yeah, awesome. The dog's name is Luigi.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. Yeah, but
I approve.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. But it's fitting with Fumes and his stream and all that, and like I said, it's a beautiful dog, and the primary reason for bringing it up is just to applaud Fumes for saving this animal, because I don't think it was like close to death or anything, but it certainly was not in great shape either, and now it's got a home with someone who's going to really care about it, and I think that's awesome. So thumbs up to Fumes for bringing this dog in and rescuing it, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. Thanks. Fumes saved an animal, so that's great. I'd rather he did that than people personally. I'm more of an animal lover than I am of, But hey, man, if it helps him out and the dog helps, and they help each other out.
Well, and that's the other thing, and without getting too much into his personal business, I think the dog will be very beneficial to him as well. So I think it's going to be I think that
goes without saying for most people with pets. They usually need a pet because, lonely sacks of shit people.
Well, he's not a lonely sack of shit. That's a terrible thing to say.
I was actually really talking more about us. If I'm
well, yes, we are lonely sacks of shit, but
yes.
Yeah. So
We don't even like each other. We're just lonely, so we do a podcast with each other.
Basically, yeah. fuck? All right.
I just know how delirious you are, so I'm trying to fuck with you.
I'm so tired, yeah.
It's like seeing someone on acid and just sort of being like, hey, man, you see that mushroom? Like, oh my God, there is a mushroom.
I wish I was on acid. It might actually feel better.
I don't
anyway.
think so. I don't know how you would be on acid.
I don't want to know either. So that said, I wanted to talk about something that we kind of touched on 2 episodes ago, and it's a thing about Tarantino, because...
Ooh, a Tarantino tie-in?
Essentially, yeah. Because by coincidence, Kill Bill Volume 1 was on the other night, and I was watching it, and even though I own it, it just was on, so I had it playing. And
sure.
It was at the beginning. And this is something I thought about when we were discussing Tarantino's movies, and really didn't bring it up because we weren't deep diving all of his movies. It was more of just like a follow-up to Once Upon a Time and doing a quick ranking.
Sure.
But I found what I'm calling a major plot hole in the first movie.
Okay.
Or the first Kill Bill.
Yeah, I get you.
And,
Volume 1.
Well, it's more for the audience, but, so she wakes up right as the, pimp, if you will, was bringing in his next client.
Orderly.
Right, the orderly. And, you know, she pretends to be asleep, so he goes through his spiel about what you can and can't do to her and all that stuff. And she fucks up the guy that's trying to rape her, and ultimately fucks up the orderly, whose name is Buck. You know, right. And she should. That's all terrible stuff they were doing to her, and I'm glad she fucked them both up. Right?
Right. Fuck rapists.
Yes, absolutely. But she was at that point, paralyzed, but her muscles had atrophied, so her legs were not working.
Right.
And so she couldn't walk very well.
Or
at all, yeah. And she kills the orderly. Well, she kills them both, really, but she kills the orderly, and then steals the keys to his truck, the pussy wagon, and goes out to his truck, and gets in the back seat to begin to, like, will her legs into functioning again, basically.
Yeah.
Spoilers to anyone who hasn't seen this movie, by the way, but
it's
still.
The beginning of the fucking movie, guys. Like,
yeah, for real, but still.
It's pretty spoiled within the first 20 minutes.
Here's the plot hole, and I'm gonna sound a little bit like Steph on this one, but I feel like I'm right, okay?
Okay, I'm with you.
She gets in the truck and starts working on her legs. And there's
toes.
Starts with her toes and then works her way, I'm sure, up her legs. We just don't see all that in the thing, because there's a fade out and a thing that comes across the screen. It says 13 hours later, and she jumps out of the truck, gets in the front of the truck, and drives away. Here's my plot hole. She left a dead body in her room, and she's missing. Someone who's been a coma patient for over a decade, or over 5 years, I think it is at that point.
Yeah, 4 years, I think.
4 years, okay. And leaves 2 dead bodies, really, in her room, and nobody thinks to check for his truck that's sat there for 13 hours?
Here's the thing that I can maybe argue. I 100% agree with you, and it's not...
And that's not me... To our listeners, that's not me shitting on the movie or saying that now suddenly I don't like it. I still love the movie, but that's...
No, it's not even really you nitpicking. It's sort of a gaping hole that's just like... I mean, and Tarantino could have totally fixed it if he just hadn't said 13 hours. If he just said 3 hours.
Or
3 hours.
Sometime later.
Or even or sometime later.
Yeah.
Or something. But here's the only thing that I can argue. And I, for all I know, there is a clock in the room in the movie that, like, goes against this theory.
Sure.
It could have been right before, the hospital, quote, not really closes, because hospitals don't close, but they minimize entrances and everything. And, like, maybe the majority of it could also be a really small, like, hospital.
Right. But hold on a second. All right, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
I'm saying, and then, like, it could be 13 hours honestly, for all we know, she may have hid the bodies.
Okay, but that's the other thing, right? I thought of that. So you bring up 2 points. I want to start with the small hospital or closing, or that portion of your theory, right? Patients are still checked on Now, I'm assuming coma patients not as frequently, but still probably every couple of hours.
Right. They assess you.
13 hours would not pass with somebody going into that room and noticing that she was missing and dead bodies.
Unless Buck was the only one assigned to...
But he was an orderly, not a nurse. So there would still be a nurse assigned to her or to that room.
Do we even know if he was an orderly, or do we just assume he may be a nurse?
Well, okay, but his shift would have ended. And still, the fact that he wouldn't have gone back to the nurse's station, because listen, this is where I can kind of get a little nitpicky about it, because my mom was a nurse in a hospital for 20 plus years, right. I know how that functions. They go to the nurse's station, they check on their patients, they do rounds. Like, this guy disappearing for a solid 13 hours just doesn't fly. Do you know what I'm saying?
The only other thing that I can think of is that he is so, hated within the hospital. They're just like, fuck Buck. I don't even want to go near him. We know what he's doing to that woman in the coma. We don't want to be any part of it. We don't want to see it. So they just ignore him. I
mean, I guess. But all right, even then, the guy that got brought in to fuck her disappears.
Yeah. Well, they don't know about him.
But
they're not
he's
looking
got
for him.
Family or somebody, presumably.
Why would you presume that motherfucker's got family if he's raping Uma Thurman?
Okay, well, that's fair. I got to give you that. Yeah. But
the only family that dude has is Adam Sandler.
Right, because it's that guy. Yeah,
it's Adam Sandler's buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not implying that Adam Sandler's associates with scumbags. It's the actor.
We are not saying that John Loughran, I think is what his name is.
I think so.
Is a rapist, but he definitely is very good at playing creeps.
Yes.
Remember, he was a Death Proof.
I only saw that once, so I don't.
He's the guy. Owns the fucking white car that they want to do that Hangman's what the fuck, Pirates Mask or whatever the fuck they're doing.
Dude, I'm not gonna remember.
And they leave their friend. Bear with me. They leave a friend who's the cheerleader, and they imply we're gonna test drive your car. We're gonna leave our friend who's an actress who's in a cheerleading outfit, and then he just sort of stands in front of her and goes.
Okay, well, yeah, he's got that very distinct laugh. He uses that in a couple of the Sandler movies. Waterboy, I think, is the most prominent one.
Yeah, you're right. He's got a cross eye.
Yeah,
he crosses his eye to look more
weird,
fucked up.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but yeah,
I see your point. It is a glaring. It is a hole.
And that's really kind of a bad choice of words considering the scene leading up to it. But that's not the That said, the other thing I noticed, and this is not about Kill Bill, but you said something on the episode about Eric Stoltz being in Pulp Fiction. Mm-hmm. And when I went back and listened to the episode, I was like, oh, I don't think I ever, because sometimes when we're talking, and we've talked about this on air before, I'm juggling many things to keep the show flowing. And sometimes when you say stuff, I miss little things like that. I think I missed you saying Stoltz was in Pulp Fiction when we were recording it. So when I went back and I heard it, I was like, oh, I didn't know he was in there. So I went and I looked it up, and when I saw who he was playing and had no idea that was Eric Stoltz, was really oh, wow. No clue that was who that was.
Really?
Yeah,
he's pretty
for real.
Recognizable in that movie.
If you're familiar with Eric Stoltz, I know the name, I know some of the roles he's been in, but I don't know him well enough to look at a picture and go, okay, that's Eric Stoltz. I don't.
I think I've always kind of known what Eric Stoltz looked like based on the movie The Butterfly Effect.
Right, which I've only seen once, so.
Well, he plays Ashton Kutcher's girlfriend's dad, who makes them, he puts them in a kiddie porn movie at one point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And at one point, he grows his hair long and has a beard, and he basically looks exactly how he did Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction, yeah.
You're right. I haven't seen Eric Stoltz in much of anything.
Right. I mean, here's the two things I know him for, honestly. Outside of Pulp Fiction, now that I know he's in the movie, is Mask, which he's under a shit ton of prosthetics and whatever, and
his
non-existent role in Back to the Future.
Right. You know? I would actually 100% agree. I mean, nothing against Eric Stoltz. I think he's actually like.
Oh, he was. Now that I know that that's who that is, like, I have much more
work. He needs to work with Tarantino more.
Probably. But like for real, I was like, oh shit, okay, that's who that is. And like, I mean, he was awesome in that role. That's one of my favorite characters in the whole movie of Pulp Fiction. Like, honestly.
You know, someone said that basically that is Jesus in hiding. Someone, I don't remember who it was, but like, it's just Jesus come back to Earth and he like says, fuck it, I'm just gonna sell drugs.
Like, the interaction between him and Patricia Arquette is, I think it's Patricia.
Rosanna.
Oh, Rosanna, okay, sorry. I knew it was an Arquette, I just couldn't remember.
Yeah. It may have been David, for all I know.
Yeah, right. But the interaction between those two was, I loved it. Like, you know, when she's giving him shit about finding the shot, and he's like, well, shut the fuck up and let me find the shot! You know what I mean? Or even when he's talking to Vince, and he's like, when I bring a fucked up Pooba to your house, I'll give her the shot. You bring I'm screwing the line up, but you know the sequence.
One of my I saw the last thing about Tarantino, because we should have said all this shit about Tarantino.
Well, yeah, but yeah.
Because we do have other shit to talk about, but I'll tell you this one last thing. We do. There was you could probably still find it on YouTube, but someone had done basically the Muppet version of Pulp Fiction.
Oh, I've seen part of it, I think.
So they took like the Muppet heads and like sort of CGI'd them on the actual actors' bodies.
Okay.
So like it's Fozzie and Kermit as Jules and Vincent. Or
all right.
Vincent and Jules. So they're doing all that. And then when they do the end, say starring, and then it shows like Kermit the Frog as Vincent Vega and Fozzie Bear as Jules. And then they go through all that, and then they say also starring. They go through like Gonzo, Miss Piggy, and Animal. And then it also just shows Eric Stoltz, and it shows Eric Stoltz just sitting in his chair, like eating cereal. But without being a Muppet. So like, the implication is that Eric Stoltz is a fucking Muppet.
Oh, wow.
But they didn't change it at all. I thought that was the funniest joke in the whole fucking thing. I was like, this is pretty funny. Oh my god, that's even funnier.
Yeah, that's funny. So yeah, I just wanted to bring those up real quick before we get into tonight's topic, which, fresh off the heels of last episode's topic of Tom Hanks, we've decided to specifically deep dive into 3 movies we really did not get very deep into during our Tom Hanks discussion, which are
We're doing Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, right?
No. That's next week? Spoilers? Maybe? No. This week,
it's like a code that you guys have to crack.
I see what you did there, sir. No.
It's like a Da Vinci Code.
A Da Vinci Code? Yes. So what we are going to be talking about tonight are the Dan Brown series of movies that have been made by Ron Howard, The Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, and Inferno.
I think they've actually been given it's called the Robert Langdon series. Is actually what I think it's called.
Okay. And thank you for saying that, because that kind of leads me to, and I know we will probably want to do them in order, but let's briefly start with Inferno, and then if we want, we can double back. But watching Inferno today, realized what they were trying to do. Cause and why Inferno, I think, didn't do as well as the first two. Now, there's a couple reasons I came up with, but there's one specific thing that I thought of that may have contributed to it, right?
Okay. Wait. Let's do our usual spoilers if you haven't seen the first 3 movies, or the only 3 movies.
The only 3 movies, yeah.
Well, personally, I'd like them to make more, but I also hear they're going to be making a TV series that's going to be sort of an origin series, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. What?
So, what I think they're doing, or what they were attempting to do, is turn the first 2 movies, which I would call the Da Vinci movies, even though Angel and Demons isn't really a Da Vinci thing, but like that portion, right? and turn it into like a Jack Ryan kind of thing, where eventually someone other than Tom Hanks could play Robert Langdon, like they've done with Jack Ryan, because you got Alec Baldwin in Hunt for Red October, and you've got 2 movies with Harrison Ford, which the name, I think it's Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games, but I'm not sure about that.
Correct.
And then you have another one with Affleck, and now you've got the series on Amazon with John Krasinski.
But there was also one between Affleck and
Chris Pine. Yep, I do remember that. I forgot till you started to say it, but yeah, there's that one too.
A lot of people forgot that movie.
I didn't see it. Was it bad?
I didn't see it either. That's my point.
Okay. Well, no, I'm only asking because, like, look, as great as Harrison Ford is, I was not a fan of those as much as I am Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, you love a big submarine. I know you do. You also love like that. You love Sean Connery's attempt at a Russian accent. You love.
There's just something about that
movie.
Yeah, I really do. I love the fuck out of that movie. But I think that's what they were starting to try to set up for Langdon, is that kind of series of movies. Whether Tom Hanks did the rest of them, or they were able to break them into other people. My point specifically is if the third one breaks away from religion. The first 2 are very highly centered in the Catholic religion. And Inferno, while there's it alludes to religion. It doesn't center around dogma and Catholicism and that kind of stuff.
Well, except for the entire thing about hell and plague and Dante's Inferno, which is incredibly Catholic.
No, but Catholicism's not the only religion that believes in a hell. That's my point.
But as Tom Hanks basically said it, he's like, what we perceive as hell is from Dante. Dante created, Dante gave us the best idea of what hell would have been like.
But the first one centers around Jesus Christ himself. You know, and the second one,
the Catholic Church and
order of succession. And the order of succession within the Catholic Church. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying there's no religion in Inferno, but it's not as deeply entrenched in a specific religion.
I agree. And by that comparison, I would say that Inferno feels the least like a Robert Langdon movie than the other 2.
Right, but as we talked about briefly last episode, like, the Lost Symbol is not overly religious. It's more Masonic than Catholic. Now, there's religion in that as well, meaning the book, because there's no movie. But, you know, that's not overly Catholic in its, you know, base.
It's not because you can argue, like, okay, Robert Langdon is Indiana Jones in a tweed jacket.
Sure.
That's really kind of how Dan Brown describes him. Is he actually describes him as looking like Harrison Ford with like a turtleneck and like a tweed jacket and like khaki pants. He is, let me put it this way. He is Sean Connery's character from Last Crusade, but younger.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Sure.
He's Henry Jones Sr.
Right. Well, I would put him in like, if we're putting him into a family tree, I would say he's like the third cousin or the first cousin of, you know, like he'd be like Indiana's mom's brother's kid. You know what I mean? Or Harrison's brother's kid, you know.
Where does Nicolas Cage's role in National Treasure fall?
He's a third cousin. Twice removed, roommate, neighbor's friend.
Yeah. I'm your father's brother's sister's second cousin roommate.
Right. No. Look, we joke, but we both actually like National Treasure, if I recall. You know,
I liked National Treasure 1 and 2 more than Inferno. I liked Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons more than National Treasure. So that's how little I liked Inferno.
Okay,
Inferno just seemed so separate. I didn't like I'm torn because I do like a filmmaker that will explore new ways of filmmaking, like not just be pigeonholed in the same way that they film shit. Like,
sure,
you could pick out a Spielberg film out of a whole bunch of other films.
Right.
But Ron Howard, if you were to say Ron Howard directed the first 2 Da Vinci Code movies, and then you put like Inferno with a whole bunch of other movies, including maybe National Treasure, I would say people would guess, oh, National Treasure. He must have done that because that looks similar to Da Vinci Code. Was Inferno is just high paced and kinetic and almost edited with a frenzy. It does not look like the third movie of that trilogy.
Well, there's a couple things to say to that, right? So first, if anything, because you talk about the kinetic pace, it ramps up from 1 to Inferno. So in terms of pacing, the Da Vinci Code's probably the slowest. I'm not saying it's slow, but from a pacing, and keep in mind, comparing to the other 2 movies. So
absolutely.
Da Vinci's the slowest. Angels and Demons, as you actually mentioned last time when we brought it up, is definitely faster because it has to be because there's a clock, right, in terms of counting down. Inferno ramped it up another notch. So, like, it is ramping up the pace of the same base story, Mm-hmm. To your point about different editing, yes, I have to agree and then also disagree. And what I mean by that is, like, when Robert Langdon in the Da Vinci Code is telling stories to, and I don't remember her name, the French
Sophie.
actress who's playing
Sophie,
right. But I'm trying to think of the actress name, and I don't know, because she hasn't really done anything in the States beyond the Da Vinci Code that I'm aware of.
Is it like Audrey Tautou or something like that?
I think it's even more French than that, but yeah.
Audrey Tautou!
Well, not quite what I meant, but sure. The point being, though, is when he's telling those stories to her about, like the
Crusades,
the Crusades, and they actually have, like, I don't want to say flashbacks, but they show those sequences, like they filmed sequences of castles being attacked, and most of it might be CGI for all I know, but that's not the point. They did something very similar when Langdon was having these, visions of Dante's Inferno, or the modern day version thereof. These visions he was having, they shot all that. So that's very similar. There wasn't a lot of that in Angels and Demons, actually, if any. I don't really think there was any of that.
There was, but not as much but it was mostly, it was sparse because it was mostly,
a modern day story.
Well, yeah, I think they were exploring, the Illuminati a little bit. But,
well, I mean, like, what flashback was there or vision that they really needed to show? I don't really recall.
I know there's one, but I'm trying to remember. I think it was just when they were, it showed, Hanks walking into a place, and then it showed, like, as he was walking through the courtyard.
Yes. When they
was that.
Right.
Yeah,
when they go
he was,
to,
like, walking through, like, the ghosts or the echoes of time of what it used to look like.
When they went to Isaac Newton's, tomb, or what they thought was his tomb. No, it was his tomb. When they go to Isaac Newton's tomb, that's when they do
Isaac Newton was from the first one.
No. Nope, you're getting your movies wrong.
No. Isaac Newton was from the Da Vinci Code.
No, he's not. I will bet you $100 that I will actually pay you.
Okay, why did they drop? What was the password for the cryptex?
I owe you $100.
Boom.
Yeah. No, the sequence.
You don't have to pay me.
Good, because I really wasn't going to.
Yeah, but you're gonna edit this shit out.
No, I'll take my lumps. No, the scene I'm thinking of is when they go to see a Pope, a Knight Interned. I think that's that's the first one too. Yeah, what am I thinking of then? I know
you're thinking of when they go in Italy and they're trying to find it's Raphael. They're trying to find Raphael's tomb, and he wasn't buried in Raphael. He wasn't buried in Italy. He was buried in Spain or something. He's buried somewhere else, and they go there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I remember that sequence. Like, I don't remember there being. No, the more I'm thinking about it, like I don't remember there being like that flashback sequence in Angel and Demons. You're right. The one I was saying is from the Da Vinci Code, but yeah.
Let me look. I'm not saying your memory is not correct, but I did just see all three within about 2 days.
I get you. Anyway, the point being though is regardless, it's done more in the Da Vinci Code and Inferno than it is in Angels and Demons.
Of actually like doing shit or like finding clues.
No, like having sequences where it shows like a flashback or like these visions that he was having.
And that's my point. For me, the Robert Langdon movies are comparable to like say Indiana Jones, where if it was like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Last Crusade, and then like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I know you like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but I'm saying that as an example, it feels and looks differently enough where it sort of takes you out of the film where you're like, this doesn't seem as close to Indy as the other two were. It has the character and it has a semblance and a resemblance of this franchise. But, or another example would be like, okay, Star Wars 4, 5, and then jump to like Last Jedi. You know what I'm saying? They're all still in the series, but you know, it's dramatically different. For me personally, I looked at it and I'm like, Inferno just is for me, the weakest one. It's a highly predictable plot. You kind of, I mean, it's still acted well. I think Tom Hanks does a great job looking panicked.
Well, that's what I was kind of trying to say is like, I feel like they're trying to turn this into a more of a series, something they can do multiple movies, whether it involves, you know, Tom Hanks or not, or even Ron Howard for that matter. You know, they could just pick it up and like that. This feels like something the studio wanted, not Ron or Tom. Not that they didn't want to be in the movie, but like the direction that it went.
Right.
You know.
Well, if we're following the direction, it really they've already mixed it all up because they released Da Vinci Code first, then Angels and Demons. That, you know, when chronologically by publication, it's Angels and Demons, Da Vinci Code, Lost Symbol, Inferno, and then this new one, Origins. It is likely that they are not going to be making any more Tom Hanks, Ron Howard movies.
Inferno did so terribly at the box office.
Well, to be fair, all three films have like negative reviews. All three films.
Really?
Including Da Vinci Code. Yeah. We knew that the first two are going to have a lot of controversy because of the Catholic Church.
Right.
But like a lot of people are just like, this is just low rent Indiana Jones. This is like just not good. Like I personally loved the first two, and I saw them, I think, in theaters. I saw the first one in theaters for sure.
I would even argue that, and while I love this movie as well, that National Treasure is more of a low rent Indiana Jones than the Da Vinci Code or Angels and Demons is.
Well, they're all pale. Look, nothing's going to touch Indiana Jones.
But there's more. Well, of course not. But there's more action type Indiana Jones style action. We'll put it that way in National Treasure than there is in the Da Vinci Code.
I would say differently because at least I think in like the Da Vinci Code movies, even though Tom Hanks is not like a fighter, he's still kind of like.
Well, yeah. What you get here, maybe this is a better way. If we're using Indy as the barometer, as we should, then the Da Vinci Code series, not that particular movie, but that the Robert Langdon series. Right. To put it better, is Indy when he's at the university and sorting the shit out that way. And National Treasure is when he's out in the field, in the temples or the wherever finding crap.
Okay, I'll even go one further. So Robert Langdon is Indy the Scholar. Nick Cage is Indy the runner. Nicolas Cage is running throughout that whole fucking movie.
Sure.
He's more fast paced, like, oh yeah, it's Benjamin Franklin's glasses. Let's go. We got to go. And then, to even further it, Brendan Fraser from the Mummy movies is Indy the brawler. Having
not seen any of those, I'll trust you on that. But
oh, really? You've never seen at least the first two Mummy movies?
No, none of them ever interested me. So
because I know your taste and like you love treasure hunt type shit, like we're doing,
right?
You should check out the Mummy, at least the first one.
Yeah, but they seemed more like horror flicks, not horror, not in a Freddy or Jason or Saw kind of horror, but still more of a horror flick than I would be interested in.
It is. It's like a sort of a whole trilogy expanded from the tone of Temple of Doom. It's that type of like,
which is my least favorite indie movie, if you recall. So.
Right, but I would say that it delves deep into Egyptian history and mythology and treasure and shit. It just happens to have an antagonist who is superhuman and literally sucking like the life force out of people to make himself stronger.
Which, not to get way off topic, is one of the things that actually why I like Apocalypse, the X-Men movie. Because of the mythology and because it starts off in Egypt and that whole thing, you know.
Yeah, there was a big rise in interest in Egyptian shit, and it stemmed from the Mummy. In the Mummy, fucking people love maybe my generation. My generation fucking loves the Mummy.
Yeah,
I would even go as far as to say like the Mummy is up there with like Jurassic Park and like Independence Day of like the 90s.
Sure,
game.
No, I understand where its place is in history, so I get that. I mean, in hell, you don't get The Rock as the movie star without the Scorpion King, you know? Or not the movie, but when he makes the appearance in, is it the third one or the second one?
It's the second one.
Okay.
But, I mean, everyone unanimously agrees that The Rock as the Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns, because at one point he actually is a scorpion monster thing.
Yeah.
Is some of the worst CGI.
Oh, I've seen like that clip or sequence. Not the whole thing, but I've seen it, so I know what you're talking about. Yes, I'm not defending, and it's also The Rock's like first movie, so like I'm sure his acting skills compared to what they are now are not anywhere as good. And I'm not saying he's some great thespian. I'm just saying like he's gotten better.
He's evolved, yeah.
Yeah.
But I actually, side note, I think that was the highest paycheck for a debut. I think he got $1 million for his debut.
But that's also because I'm pretty sure Vince McMahon negotiated that contract for him, or at least helped. So,
could be.
Yeah. Anyways, getting back to Tom Hanks, or not Hanks, but to the Robert Langdon. Yeah. I think that's where they were going with Inferno. I think that's why Inferno has the vibe that it has, the pace that it has, the way that it is. I agree with you on some things, though, for what it's worth. Like, that I'm not sitting here and just completely defending it. I just don't think it's as terrible as you do. But I do agree with the pacing, especially in the beginning. Like, what both the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons did well was set the story, set the groundwork for what you were going to see for the rest of the movie very well in the beginning. Do you know what I mean? Like, in the Da Vinci Code, where it's not even setting the groundwork for the rest of the story, but you get that sequence where he's lecturing in Paris, and you kind of get a feel for, okay, this guy's an expert. And it's not just because, someone said he's an expert, like they show why he's an expert.
Which I've got to say is one of my favorite scenes in the whole trilogy.
I agree. It's a fantastic sequence. Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, what the fuck is the rest of his lecture? Because that was like, that whole thing of like, let me show you this symbol and then show you how you think it's one thing and then show you it's really something else is the most interesting part, I would imagine the lecture being.
I wonder, because I've never taken the time to deep dive it, I wonder if one of the extra sequences or deleted scenes on my copy is or did they even film it? I don't know. I'm just saying.
I don't know.
I don't know if they would have shot a whole 3-hour lecture, but maybe they expanded on it. Do you know what I mean? That's what I mean.
Just show more examples.
Right.
Kind of
or just him saying more things. But I even, to piggyback off that, I even like the sequence at the beginning in the Louvre where, but what and I forget the actor's name, but he plays a great fucking villain. And I'm not even sure that he's not even the villain, but he really is an antagonist in the movie, but he's not the antagonist.
Paul Bettany.
No. But he does a great job too, because I think he got nominated for that movie, I believe, as a supporting actor. I think I have to look that up. But
are we talking about Alfred Molina?
No, I'm talking about the guy from Is it True Romance? Maybe not True Romance.
Jean Reno.
Yes, that guy. Everywhere I see him, he is just a despicable fuck, but he's so good at it. Like, I'm not even saying that as a bad thing on him, because he's so good at it. But he kind of is, because he's the guy chasing Langdon through the whole thing, and he kicks the crap out of the guy in the tower at the airport later in the movie. Like, until he realizes until he realizes, again, spoilers, people, until he realizes he was the pawn of Alfred Molina's character, then you look at him differently. But up to that point, he kind of is a villain. I mean, I know what you're saying, that ultimately he's not, but the way you feel about him as the viewer, you know what I mean?
I have a couple points. I agree, but I wouldn't call him. I would call him maybe like, instead of a secondary antagonist, I'd call him like the third, whatever.
Yeah, he's low. Yeah, because first off, again, spoilers, it's Ian McKellen, and then it gets into Molina's character, then probably Paul. If you're ranking them out, then it's probably Paul Bettany, and even then, I might flip flop Molina and Paul Bettany only because
I would too.
Only because of the actions. But then you get into the Butler, and then Renault. Like, I mean, if we're ranking it out, that's where it falls. Like, I'm not saying he's some,
So, a couple things. One, Dan Brown had a feeling that when he wrote Da Vinci Code, he's like, there's no way they're not going to make a fucking movie of this. So he wrote certain characters with actors in mind.
Yeah.
And he wrote Bezu Fash as Jean Reno. And Jean Reno, when he read the script, when he read the book, he's like, this is for me. I know this is me.
Right.
Like, and he like told everybody, he's like, there's a fucking character that's based on me. You watch. I'm going to get this fucking role. The other thing, Bezu Fash in French roughly translates to angry fucker.
That's awesome.
But if we're going even more interesting translations, do you remember what, Alfred Molina's character is named?
Hold on. Let me think. Well, ironically, I'm pulling up the IMDb for a different reason, but I don't have it up yet, so let me think.
It's super Spanish / Italian.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of what it was. You're gonna have to say, I know it, but I can't get it to come out. Go ahead.
It's Arenga Rosa.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. I did know that. I really did.
Which translates in Spanish, but most in prominently Italian, to red herring.
Well, and that's really what he was. The character was.
That's the point. Yeah, it's funny how like they do. Dan Brown, as an author, like I was sucked into Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code as the books. I was really into them, but not to the point where I was taking it as face value or as truth value. I wasn't taking it as fact.
Sure.
But I do agree the guy can write a compelling mystery as well as he does his research.
Well, and
I think he did just as much. Some of his dialogue is a little meh. Some of his plot points are a bit predictable, but I'd still enjoy the ride. what else?
Well, I mean, and to the point, if you again recall last week when we did briefly talk about him, I told you about that book, Digital Fortress, that he wrote that had nothing to do with Robert Langdon, that was really good. You know what I mean? And again, very, I would imagine, factual, based in a fact world where, fiction happened. Because, it was all NSA and, it was money counterfeiting and things like that and computer hacking. So, to back up very quick, though, yes, Jean Reno for Bazou Fash. And then Audrey, I'm going to call her Tato, is Sophie Nauvoo. I don't know how you would pronounce the last name, so it's not meant to be.
I think it's Neve.
No, she says in the movie. I remember her saying Nauvoo or Nouveau. That's how you say it. I'm sorry. Yeah,
I could have heard. I mean, maybe it's Tom Hanks is trying to do French, but bear in mind, I don't speak a lick of French, and I'm pronunciation.
When I think about it when she says it and when Fash says it, because they both say her name at one point.
Well, but he says her name when she gives him the phone, and he's like, it sounds like he kind of mumbles like Miss Neva,
right?
Yeah. Anyways, her fucking, she's Jesus' granddaughter,
and or something like that. Yeah, like great granddaughter or something. Like there's several greats in there, I'm sure.
She is the last scion.
It's the last scion, yeah. I want to step back to Paul Bettany for a minute as Silas.
Sure.
Because the only time, at that point when I saw the Da Vinci Code, and I saw it in theaters, that's one I did see in theaters. My mom wanted to see that. What?
2006.
Yeah, my mom wanted to see that movie, and most of her family wouldn't go because they saw it as a sacrilege.
Anti-Catholic.
Yeah, and my mom was a little more open to seeing what it was all about. So we went together and watched it. And
how was her reaction?
She, from a religious perspective, she wasn't upset with it at all. She, or she was, she never really expressed that to me. My mom is not a big movie person, so in general, she was like, it was okay.
It was a big treat to get her to go see a movie anyways.
Especially when she called me and said, hey, I want to go see this movie. Will you go with me? And it was like, oh, sure. Because it's not like her to want to go to she does not like going to the theater. Now, more recently, without getting into a whole bunch of details because it just would take too long and there's no point, she basically has a grandson. It's not mine, but it's more complicated than that. So
I hear you.
And he is autistic, and so while he's 12, he likes younger type movies because of where he's at. And so she enjoys taking him to see stuff like Toy Story and Paddington and so she'll go to those movies and doesn't mind the experience. But when it's stuff like, she would have never in a million years gone and seen something like Infinity War. Even if she loved comic books, she just wouldn't have wanted to go to the theater. She would have waited.
Sure.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But backing up to my point, Paul Bettany, up to that point, the only thing I was familiar with him in was A Knight's Tale.
Yeah.
And actually, I had seen Wimbledon prior to seeing.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Wimbledon came out.
I've never seen Wimbledon.
It's okay, and I primarily.
Which isn't that directed by Jon Favreau?
I can check, but I
may be wrong.
I honestly saw it for I only saw that movie for two reasons, and they're kind of tied together. One, I liked Paul Bettany from A Knight's Tale, and I've always kind of had a crush on Kirsten Dunst, so it was like, shit, why not watch that movie? But up to that point, those are the only two things I was familiar with him in. Now, I'm checking his IMDb because I'm curious what order he did some of this stuff in. So, A Knight's Tale.
Wimbledon, probably like 2004.
What's that?
Knight's Tale, I want to say Wimbledon, at the top of my head, it's like 2004, 2005. Da Vinci Code's 2006. I would say A Knight's Tale is 2001.
You're actually dead on all three of those.
Yeah.
Now,
and then he had a massive career upswing.
But he had two big movies in between, honestly, that I had not realized till just now. Because of the order I saw them in, not necessarily what they came out in.
In between what and what?
Wimbledon and a Knight's Tale.
Okay.
He was in Master and Commander, Far Side of the World.
Okay, I never saw it.
It's a good movie if you like old school like ship movies. It's a pretty good movie.
Okay,
it's long but it's good. Russell Crowe's the lead in that.
Yeah.
And then also A Beautiful Mind.
You're right. I forgot he was in it. He's one of the best parts of A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah, he really is. He's really good in that movie. The other thing he's in that I know you're a fan of, real quick before you make your point, and I'll shut up, is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is during that window. I thought you liked that movie. Maybe I got my...
He's not in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
He's Jimmy, according to this.
Is that the... There may have been another movie called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Is that the one with Robert Downey Jr.?
I'm checking right now.
I don't think...
Let's see. No, I don't see RDJ, but it's Stellan Skarsgård, Chris Penn.
So that's a whole other movie called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, wow, I didn't know that.
Hitman Felix has quit the criminal activities and found employment minding a rich adult son.
Yep, not all what Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is.
All right, well, this is called Kiss Kiss. Now, the Bang Bang's in parentheses, so maybe that's the difference. I don't know.
That is the difference. But wow, Paul Bettany works with Ron Howard a lot because he did this. He did A Beautiful Mind. He was also in Solo.
Yes. Yep.
And for those who don't know who the fuck we're talking about, this is like Vision. This is like Jarvis.
Yeah. And then to tie it to Star Wars for another minute, Felicity Jones from Rogue One, who's in Inferno.
I'm trying to think if there's any other Star Wars actors in the Da Vinci Code apart from those two. There's some X-Men ones. Like Ben Foster is Angel in The Last Stand. And he's the guy he's the billionaire from Inferno.
Oh, wow.
Ian McKellen, as Magneto.
Ian McKellen, sure. Yeah. Which, by the way, if we want to talk about it later, there's talk of them race bending both Magneto and Professor X.
I'm actually kind of okay with it, if I'm being honest.
I haven't put much thought into it, but I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Getting back to the Da Vinci Code, I feel like we're not doing this series justice because, I am actually a huge fan of the Da Vinci Code, and I know you said previously that you're a bigger fan of Angels and Demons than you are the Da Vinci Code.
But I still really enjoy. I love both films equally. I just like Angels and Demons just a slight bit more.
And it, as I said when we brought it up before, and I'll bring it up again because I think it might be worth deep diving, is it falls into the Batman Begins Dark Knight conundrum in that I actually recognize how great the Dark Knight is, of course, but I prefer just ever so slightly Batman Begins.
I'm not gonna argue with you about which is the better of the films. I still think they're.
It's 1-1A, right?
What?
It's like 1-1A. Like, we're not talking. Yeah.
They seem more like actual sequels to a film that are. Look, regardless what people say about, they're critical failures. They made a bunch of money, but we didn't like them. I was deep engrossed with, Tom Hanks, running around with, in the Louvre or in the Vatican. I was really into it. And
I agree.
For our listeners, and you obviously know this, I am a devout militant atheist. I'm no fan of the Catholic Church.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was curious. I wanted to approach that a little bit. So keep going with your point.
Well, I'm going to say something that's slightly controversial.
Oh no!
But I agree with Ian McKellen's character in the Da Vinci Code.
Okay, well,
in what
way?
Want to give them a reminder of what the fuck it is?
Well, in what way do you agree with him? Because I'm not sure what part you're talking about. Because he says several things, and I'm not saying that one's different. I mean, but they're all interlinked. But he still has a couple different.
He is a believer that Jesus was a man and not a God or the Son of God. He was a man and he died a man. And that's the whole point. He had a bunch of, he just had some great followers that changed it, that made him a deity.
And we can argue the religious aspects of it later if you want, but with some great messages, which was basically be nice to everybody, don't harm people, right, basically. I mean, because that's, if you boil down the teachings, as someone who was raised Catholic, if you boil down the teachings of Jesus Christ, it's basically be kind to everybody, and like you said, don't be a prick,
Yeah. That is my, my translation of what the what real Christianity really should be, or at least what Jesus's teachings were, which is, don't be a fucking asshole. What's wrong with you?
I agree.
I wish people could follow fucking, just Jesus and not so much as the Bible. That's really what I'm saying.
Sure, I hear that. And to a point that we talked about when we had Eddie Pence on, is we and it was more of a humorous joking way, but we referenced the special where George Carlin takes the 10 Commandments and knocks it down to 2 or 3 or whatever, and the number's not important right now, but he takes the 10.
Gonna put it in his fucking pocket.
Right, but 10, he knocks it down to 2. And I'm gonna get a little biblical for just a second, but there's a sequence towards the end of Jesus' life where he basically says the only commandment you need to follow is just be kind to everybody. Love thy neighbor is the actual commandment that he says. And basically says, and he would never put it this way, but fuck the other 10. That's the one you need to focus on. And that's not what religion does. And which is why I have an issue with religion. But, I'm really kind of glad we're talking about this because I was really kind of curious, me being raised Catholic and you basically being raised atheist,
But with an understanding of Catholicism and Christianity. I know I'm not, you were raised with the shit. I had to explore it and learn myself.
Right. And I'm not taking away from your knowledge base, but having, me being, basically born into it, and you, not being in it and being in the position that you believe. Because I'll say the same thing. I agree with you. I believe closer to Ian McKellen's, perspective than what I was raised on.
Well, what I was alluding to was that if I found the proof that Jesus was a man, had sex, has a lineage, and actually had intended for his church to be run by a woman, specifically Mary Magdalene, who was, her profile was smeared by the Catholic Church.
Sure.
They called her a prostitute, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
If I had that proof, I would have released it. I would have said, does the Catholic Church feed the hungry and help the poor? Yes. Have they also killed millions just to stay in power?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Both things are true.
But one does not make the other one okay, as far as I'm concerned.
No, it does not.
It's honestly, it's like the mafia. The mafia will protect their neighborhood and they'll protect someone's shop, but they will also go to someone else's flower shop and say, we're going to offer you protection, and they're going to smash up the windows and destroy the merchandise. Say, see, clearly you need protection.
Right.
You need to pay us to protect you.
Yeah. I mean,
well, I have a big problem with the fact that all churches, but especially the Catholic Church, doesn't pay taxes, and they receive billions of dollars.
Well, I mean, yes. Do I have a problem with that? Yes. My bigger problem in that particular point you just made is Scientology, hands down. But that's.
But my whole thing is, why is a religion not? Why does that excuse them from paying taxes?
Well, and the other thing you have to keep in mind, and we're getting into a way off topic, but one thing you keep in mind is I think that's a uniquely an American thing. I don't think that's worldwide. But that's
true. But
They still have billions. You're right. Like, yeah.
There are lots of Catholic churches in America that I'm sure eventually go back up to the Vatican.
Oh, no, without question.
Right.
My bigger issue, if we're going to get into that real quick, is simply asking for money every week. You're required to give 10% of your earnings to the church every week. Like, no.
In which you always have to, people already have to fucking do anyways with their own taxes.
Right. So it's, right.
That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. But anyway, getting back to the story in the movie, I don't disagree with you though. Like you talked earlier about the lecture with Langdon being one of, if not your favorite scene in the movie.
A favorite scene. Yeah.
A favorite scene. My hands down favorite scene is from the minute they start talking to Lee Tibbing until Silas attacks them. Like that whole sequence.
And I agree. That's my favorite scene too. In the whole trilogy, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I think I have to agree with you. Like, hands down, that's the best part of the entire sequence. All of them.
And the irony is it kind of goes on. It's longer than you think it is. It's them really
deep diving.
It's deep diving. It's a history lecture, and it's fascinating. It's like, I also would argue that he had that shit always prepped up just on the off chance someone wants to come in and talk about Mary Magdalene. Well, like he had that shit set up ready. He's like,
I don't think it's even that. I think he's that immersed in what he believes. See, that's what makes Tibbing such a great foil to the movie such a great antagonist to the movie is because he believes what he believes as deeply as the Catholic Church believes what they believe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I would also argue that he also believes that what he believes needs to be out in the open.
No, yeah, absolutely. Church, yeah.
I would also say the Catholic Church in the world of the Da Vinci Code is fully aware of Mary Magdalene's actual status. Because they're trying to
hide it. Yeah. No, well, that's the thing that's curious to me about it. It is because it seemed like it was that council only that was really involved with that. No, because they weren't all Opus Dei, if I recall. I know Arangosa is, but I don't know that all, like, it was a little unclear to me if that entire council was Opus Dei.
It's not that entire council, but it is Arangosa and Silas. Sure. But if you remember, it's because Ian McKellen is playing both sides. He is Palpatining this shit.
Oh,
he is playing both sides
totally,
just to fucking get
the knowledge out there. Yeah,
but like, and that's what I'm saying. Is like, I would never want to. Again, I may come off like the militant anti-Catholic guy here. But that's okay, because I am. I'm not so much anti-Catholic people, but I am anti-Catholic church.
Religion.
I'm anti-bully by any stretch.
Well, sure.
I don't care. I mean,
as much as you bully me on a regular basis, I'm a little surprised by that.
I don't bully you. I give you shit.
I'm fucking with you, dude.
That's the same thing. If I was bullying you, I wouldn't be on the fucking show.
Well, no shit.
Right. Just for the record, every time I bully CJ, he just edits it out, so there's
basically
no proof. He tries to make it sound really good.
But yeah, you're right though. Like it's him playing both sides of the coin and whatever, and and playing the both sides fears and desires. I liked a lot of that whole sequence, like I said, is my favorite of the whole series, but my specific favorite part, I think, within that itself is when he starts reading from the books of the Bible that didn't make the cut. So he's like, when he reads from the book of Mary Magdalene and the book of Philip, I think it was the other one. And when he specifically reads the Mary Magdalene one, and and Sophie says to him, she wrote a book wrote a book of the Bible, and Langdon goes, she may have, And, like, it's that interaction between Teabing and Langdon, where Langdon's still kind of leaning towards his belief, you know.
And Teabing says, Robert, will you play fair?
Right.
Like, she may have.
Right. Like
I agree. They're like a weird old married couple.
Or like an uncle and a nephew arguing over something. You know, like, it's, yeah.
I love how it just sets the tone where, like, when they pull up to his driveway, the intercom is on the right side because he's English. He's like, fuck the French. I'm in my side. And he has to do this little, like,
quiz.
A little test of knowledge. Be like, well, shall I serve you coffee or tea? It's like, tea, of course.
Yeah.
It's such a great...
The best one, though, to our point, I'm sorry, did I take your...
No, you're fine.
Is the third question when he says, "In what year did I think it's a Yale, right? It's Harvard where Langdon teaches against. I'm guessing where Teabing either taught or graduated from because it's never really clear, and it's that particular one that, to your point, sets the tone for them arguing through the rest of the sequence.
Well, because it goes, do you want tea or coffee? Tea, okay. Is it milk or lemon? That would depend on the tea. And then it'd be, and it's like, okay, what is the square root of 137?
Right.
Like,
but then the other thing is, do you remember the answer to the rowing question, though? Do you remember the answer to that? Such
a travesty.
Never
have occurred. He's like,
your
heart is true. By the way, he says, you may pass. Instead of, you shall not pass.
Right.
He says, you may pass.
Now, there's also a throwback to that, though, later when he's serving the tea, and he says what type of tea he's serving, and he goes, lemon. Because it's whatever tea.
Which, by the way, I had no fucking clue lemon actually, like, goes in tea.
Oh, yeah.
I did iced tea, but I didn't know hot tea, I guess.
Yeah, it can.
It goes for your cold, but I'm like, I didn't know that was a standard in, like, English tea. Like, you have Earl Grey, you have to have lemon.
Well, I don't know if it's a standard, but it is in Teabing's world.
His name has tea in it. I think the motherfucker knows what he's talking about.
Yes, but he's also a bit of I was gonna say bigot, but that's not the right word. Because he's not a bigot. There's a word for an extremist, but it's not. Extremist isn't the word. I just can't think of what it is. Anyway,
orthodox?
No. Orthodox is different. No, I'll try if I can look it up. But anyway, the point is he's very extreme in especially in his. I think not just in his beliefs in regards to the Holy Grail and that whole story, but the whole, just his life, you know.
Well, that's my argument, is that faith is really fucking dangerous.
Oh, totally.
But to go with it, how risky was it that Teabing is playing both sides? Silas could have shot him at any second when he broke in. He's like, fuck this old cripple. Boom. And Teabing would be like, fuck! Yeah, I hired you, but I have to go through, like, deception. By the way, there's a statue, a statue of Janus, who is the dual-sided, Roman figure. He represents duplicity, and he has a statue of Janus in his, study.
This is the kind of stuff that Henry talks about when he talks about how well we deep dive shit. Like, we get love from Jay and Henry more than anybody else, and we get a lot of love, and I appreciate everybody. But those two specifically point out the weird shit that you happen to know for the different movies. I think the word I was probably searching for is zealot. I think that's probably the word I was searching for.
Yeah, I would agree with that usage.
Yeah.
It sounds like big. I can understand the confusion.
Yeah. So he being Teabing, you know, and then they have the whole thing. I want to jump forward. Well, first off, I want to kind of point out something you said about faith. You talked about how faith can be dangerous. And it immediately takes me to Dogma. Right. Where there's a sequence where Chris Rock's character Rufus is talking, and he's like, "It's better to have a good idea than faith," and I think that's really kind of appropriate.
I think what he says. I think what he says is that it's easier to change an idea than it is faith. Faith, people have killed for it. People have died for faith.
Right.
It's an idea you can explore and move on and adapt.
Right,
Whereas
but if you recall,
faith is no. Jesus is this. He never had a penis, and he never stuck it in Mary Magdalene. It's never happened.
But if you recall, there's a sequence towards the end where he's talking to the last Zion of that movie, of all things. Which, by the way, thank you to Kevin Smith, because when they made that phrase, when they said that phrase in the Da Vinci Code, I knew what it was because having seen Dogma. But
Agreed.
when he's saying goodbye to her, he goes, "Crisis of faith averted," and he goes, "Let's just say I have a really good idea," and he hugs her and says something like "good answer" or something to that effect. You know,
he says yes.
Yeah. I want to go back to the Da Vinci Code and start wrapping that up and jump into Angels and Demons, because we've been at this for a little while already. But I do want to ask you about something I think about a lot when I watch the movie. Like, it doesn't plague me when I'm not watching it, but every time I see it, I think about it. And it's the very end sequence after he's parted from Sophie and she's gone off with her family, for lack of a better word. The what?
The kneeling?
Well, the whole sequence, but yes, specifically kneeling. Do you think he knows that it's there?
Yeah.
Or is he just guessing? Or not guessing, but just having faith, for lack of a better word.
I think he has a good idea.
Nicely played.
That worked out so well.
It did.
Yes,
It actually
because otherwise he wouldn't have kneeled.
I agree, but my thing that I've always wondered is kind of what I just asked you. Did he kneel because he was positive it was there, or out of reverence to the fact that it could be?
Let me put it this way. Throughout the film series, Robert Langdon doesn't scream atheist, but he doesn't scream religious either. He's a scientist. He's a pragmatist, and he knows the history. That's why he's also less religious than the average person, despite being raised Catholic.
Just quickly, he references that in Angels and Demons, if you recall.
Right. He says, my brain tells me as
a man of
science.
I don't think he says science. I think he uses another word, but yeah, for lack of a better phrase, man of science, I know that God could exist, but faith is not a gift that's been given to me, or something to that effect.
He says, I mean, we're nitpicking, but he says, my brain tells me, that they're, now, I know the next line, because, Obi-Wan, that was the other Star Wars character.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan, tells him, he's like, and your heart, what does your heart tell you? He's like, my heart tells me that I'm not supposed to question God.
Right.
Like, his heart tells, I think he's at a conflict, but that's my point, is when he kneels for Mary Magdalene at the end of the film, I don't think he's kneeling in a religious subtext. I don't think he's kneeling for God or for Jesus. He's kneeling for Mary Magdalene because and I think you have to remember, every one of Tom Hanks's co-stars is a woman. The trilogy is, despite the fact, and spoiler, in Inferno, she is really the main antagonist. They do the flip side where the lead heroine is also the villainess in a weird way.
Yeah.
The movies are actually very pro-woman.
Oh, sure.
Which is rare, because especially in the first two movies, the Catholic Church is very anti-woman.
Right.
So I think it was him being feminist enough to show his appreciation for Mary Magdalene, which I would also throw out is that is what Lee Teabing's character is so interesting, is that yes, he does believe in this, and he is willing to kill for it, and he's willing to, he hates the Catholic Church and he really wants to overthrow the Catholic Church because they covered this up for, 2,000 years. But when you break it down, it's because he is very much a feminist. He is the original feminist because he's worshiping more or less the first woman who was cast aside, apart from quote unquote Eve.
Not to get way off topic, but to go back to our Marvel and Star Wars people that are in the movie, or in the series, I should say, Stellan Skarsgård as well.
Oh, good pull.
Yeah.
Steph gave me the quote, by the way. She looked it up, the quote we were trying to figure out.
Yeah.
My mind tells me I don't understand God. I will never understand God. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And then my heart tells me I'm not supposed to understand.
That's it. You're right. Thank you, Steph.
Steph, and he also says faith is a gift I have yet to receive, which basically means he is an agnostic.
Right, which is more where I hover compared to you. You know what I mean? So
I would call myself an absurdist.
I don't know the definition of that one. So
which is basically the concept of God is absurd. I understand why people believe in God, and I understand why some people just go to church just for the foundation and to be with friends and shit like that. But for me, I think we question more about why we're here. Is there a God than actually living our fucking lives? That's really my whole thing.
There's certainly truth in that sentence. It's been pretty heavy for a little bit, so I want to get a little bit lighter for a minute and reference a couple things. One, from Angels and Demons specifically, that was the first time I'd ever heard Ewan McGregor talk without an American accent, so I had
or Scottish accent.
Right. Well, because he's like Irish Scottish, right? Like he's not.
He's born in Scotland, but I think his mother was from Ireland
or something like that. Yeah,
but he is a Scottish. I mean, he has a very thick Scottish accent,
which he kind of lets fly as he should in that movie because that's where the characters. I think the character's based out of Northern Ireland, but the funny thing is that his character in the book is Italian. And obviously, Ewan McGregor is not Italian. So they changed it to an Irishman named Patrick McKenna, when really he's like, Boopy, fucking, from Italy. They changed a few things in that because, again, to your point from earlier about the sequence in which the movies were released compared to the books. But that's something else to talk about. The other thing I want to point out real quick is, going back to our discussion with Kyle Hester from several episodes back, is Carmen I'm going to say this now wrong, I'm sure, but Argenziano, the priest in Preacher 6, who it was his last role, if you recall. We haven't seen the movie yet, but we saw the trailer. Right. He plays a priest in this movie who also dies, if you recall. He's the one that gets his eye taken out. He's the priest at the CERN.
He's the guy in the very beginning.
Yeah. So I wanted to.
I thought you said you want to lighten it up. You're talking about a fucking priest getting his eye gouged out.
No, but the lightening up was more about Ewan McGregor, and just the fact that Carmen's in both of these movies, But
I'll lighten up one last thing about the Da Vinci Code, unless I remember some random bit of trivia for Henry and fucking Jay. But
yeah,
so you saw the Da Vinci Code in theaters with your mom,
right?
I saw it with my dad.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
No. That should surprise everybody. One, Dad fucking hates going to the movies.
Okay, well that I didn't know, but so does my mom, so that's kind of ironic.
But Dad, if the audience thinks that I am like, oh fuck religion, where do you think I fucking got that?
No, I know your dad's that way, and my guess, can I guess why he wanted to see this movie, or?
Go ahead.
My guess was to go in to prove that he was right. Like he went into it with that. Because a lot of the talk around the movie prior to it coming out and shortly after its release even was that it was very anti-religion. So I could see anti-Catholic, right? So I could see that appealing to people like your father, and I don't mean that as a negative on your dad, but just him being in his belief structure,
I think my dad read the book when it came out.
There could be that too, sure.
And also, you remember my friend Joe who came on the
From Cinema Wars, and yeah.
So he and I were going to go see it, and we invited my dad. And this was, I believe, the last time I went to see a movie with my dad, for very good reason. I think I may have seen one more with him, but like, this was the worst interaction I've ever had with my father at a movie.
Okay.
The movie starts, and Dad more than once says, give me a fucking break. When like, they're talking about like the church and religion and Jesus and this, and my dad's like, give me a fucking break. And then my dad leans back, puts his feet on the chair in front of him, as some people do in the theater.
Sure, I do
except
that.
Except there was a motherfucker sitting in the chair.
Well, okay. Yeah.
And he just kind of stooped down, and my dad just basically put his feet on the dude's head. And the dude was like, what the fuck? He's like, oh, sorry. and then, throughout all that, bullshit, he falls asleep and snored.
Oh my God.
So loud. Like, to the point where it's like, Joe and I are getting glares at us, and we're like, and I'm like trying to nudge Dad up, like, what are you doing?
Right,
like,
right.
This movie's bullshit. I'm like, why? You want it to be true? Like, what are you complaining about?
Yeah.
So that was my every time I watch the Da Vinci Code, I'm always like I could hear my dad
snoring
the entire time.
Oh, that's funny. How's he doing, by the way, real quick?
Oh, he's doing better. It's
good.
I'll make a joke, but like it's unnerving that he's now catching up and like able to like chase after me.
Oh,
because
geez.
Before he fucked up his leg, I can like outwalk the motherfucker, and now I'm like, fuck, you're getting better. I have to like hide from you now.
That's funny.
But we've been seeing him. His knee is getting much better.
Good.
His attitude still sucks, but you know his knee's getting better.
Sure. Anyway, getting back to the movie, as someone who was raised Catholic and has seen 2 popes selected in my lifetime, as you probably would have too, because they were both selected in your lifetime, I was still intrigued by the actual selection process. I don't mean from the movie, I mean when it actually happened. Mm-hmm. You know, especially the first time, because at that point I was even... as I've gotten older, I've become less and less attached to what I was raised on, you know.
Sure.
And at that point in my life, I was in my mid-20s, and it had been probably 10 years since I had been an active participant in the church. But moments like that still intrigue me. Do you know what I mean? So I was heavily watching like CNN and those channels, much like you see in the Angels and Demons movie. Like, the coverage was like that. There were fucking TV trucks.
Media frenzy.
Yeah. And again, much like the movie, there was, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of motherfuckers in the middle of the square waiting to find out the decision. So that's part, and then to finally see it, I guess, from the inside. Because from what I know and the way I was raised, how that actually occurs was very accurately depicted in the movie. Except for when Patrick goes in and kind of breaks it early because of the bomb threat. Like, that's when it all falls apart. But up to that point, everything they said is actual doctrine and how that process takes place.
Yeah. I would say that Dan Brown, like I said, is a great researcher.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's something to mention, the fact that, like, the Catholic Church has been so against the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, in part because I might agree that I might say that he probably is too accurate.
And expose some stuff, possibly? Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I mean, who's to say? Do I believe fucking Jesus was the Son of God? No. Do I believe Jesus got down and dirty with Mary Magdalene? Absolutely. Does it fucking matter? No.
No.
Like, I don't... Although, again, one little random bit of trivia for the Da Vinci Code. When Teabing is reading that book of Philip...
Yeah.
And then Tom Hanks interrupts him. He says, and he loved her, and he would kiss her on the... And then he stops because Hanks interrupts him. that actually, for scholars, there is a book of Philip, allegedly.
Right.
But it's been torn apart. So the official doctrine or document ends right where Tom Hanks interrupts him, which means Teabing would not have been able to
finish the
say anything else.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting how they jumped in right when it was just going to end. Anyways.
And to that same trivia level, like the thing that I find interesting, it's not so much trivia because it's in your face in the movie, but I loved how they used the movie to describe why Friday the 13th is Friday the 13th. Because they get into that, and that's the other thing. Quick,
it's very brief.
It's brief, but it's accurate.
It's memorable.
It's also accurate. That's what I'm saying to you. Like, it's accurate. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like that book that he picks up and throws at him, and he doesn't throw it at him in like a shitty way, but he's like throwing it to him to catch it.
Oh, the book about how to kill witches and women and free-thinking women.
That wasn't created for that movie. That book is real.
Of course. Yeah.
And the Friday the 13th thing, that thing that happened on October 13th, 700, that that actually occurred,
I gotta, again.
Actually, that wasn't the witches. The Friday the 13th was the killing of the Templars, but still.
But I see what you're saying, that Dan Brown either did some amazing research or he has got an innovative enough mind.
Well, some of that's available. Like I said, that book is real, and that's you can go and find that book and read it.
When Dan Brown wrote Angels and Demons, and then it kind of was like, it was a good book, but like Da Vinci Code was what made him a name.
Sure.
And a lot of the criticism was that he had sort of taken a lot of inspiration from another book, and I want to say it's called Holy Blood or something. And it's these two authors that basically their research was what Dan Brown was saying, is that if there is a lineage, if this is the biggest cover up because the Catholic Church doesn't want to acknowledge that Jesus had offspring,
right? Because
then they would say that he's a man. Although, if you break it down, God did fuck like Mary, the Virgin Mary. So he didn't stick a dick in her, but like that's what I'm saying. It's like, why can't Jesus actually like have sex? Because sex, look, I'm all over the fucking place, but I stick to what I say, which is most religions are anti-woman.
Oh, sure.
And that's why I sort of get where T-being is coming from, because I'm like, the motherfucker is just a fan of women, which I find refreshing.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's why I think the word zealot works for him, because his intentions or his thoughts are good. His actions, not so much, for the most part.
That also goes more or less in the same thing with Ben Foster's character in Inferno. As when Steph and I were watching,
totally. Well,
he's just Thanos.
You beat me to it. I was going to say it's Thanos. It totally is Thanos.
What I liked actually is that I didn't read the book, but after doing some research, I found out that in the book, the virus the plague that he puts out, that if it had gone public, would not have done boils and plaguey type shit. It was actually going to make half the population of people sterile. It was just going to cut the possibility of reproduction.
Right.
And then every next generation would also have a slimmer chance of still being able to repopulate. So that essentially he would stop the population from expanding, which means he would have ended the fucking population within 200, 300 years. People are going to keep fucking, but that's the other thing that has nothing to do with this. But I'm like, people need to stop fucking, or just like be better at it. Just aim properly, for Christ's sake.
Aim properly.
Aim anywhere else. Aim at the fucking wall. It's better for the environment.
Use a sock. It works. I don't know.
Yeah.
To your point, real quick, it's Holy Blood, Holy Grail.
There it is. So
and
Dan Brown lifted that whole ideology, and they even reference it in the fucking book.
Allegedly, according to what I'm reading, according to this, it's alleged. It has not been proven that he lifted it.
Well, because they sued him, and he denied it. But it's in the book. In the Da Vinci Code, there's a character that brings up that book.
Oh, well, in the book, okay.
That's what I'm saying. So, I don't think he stole it. I think he adapted. Just like, anyone else.
Right. And we've had our own, for something we can't talk about yet, we've had our own discussions about adapting material lately.
Right.
So.
But back to Angels and Demons. I think I dug it because I think I dug it more than Da Vinci Code, even though I like Da Vinci Code. It's because there is a timestamp. He has to do this, but he's still doing, yes, this is the Illuminati's secret base, but we have to get through it because we have to fucking save these priests. Whereas the Da Vinci Code, even though he's got the police chasing him half the time, he spends a lot of time staying there and being like, oh yeah, look at all this. This is Leonardo da Vinci's fucking, he's a glorified tour guide.
Yeah.
But then in Inferno, he does like that once. I think that's another reason why I like Inferno the least, because he doesn't do as much.
I can think of
treasure shit.
I can think of 3 sequences where he does it in Inferno.
Okay. The Dante Mask.
Okay, 4 then, honestly. Oh. So, yes, the Dante Mask is one, and these are not in order since you brought that up, but the Dante Mask, the Dante painting out of the pointer.
And, yeah.
The museum where they had the paintings on the ceilings and the walls and all that stuff.
But he really doesn't, it's really it's quick.
It's not work, but it's still doing it. I'm with you, but he's still doing it. And then, hold on, I just lost the last one. Oh, when they're going to find the actual bag with the virus or whatever in it.
Oh,
and
in Istanbul?
In Istanbul, and he's pointing out, well, there's kind of 2 sequences there now I think about it. The one about the horses, when he's asking the questions about if they've ever been beheaded. Remember, they're asking that tour guide. And then when they're actually going to stop the final sequence, when they're in that underground water thing, and he's like talking about Medusa and the type of god, that whole thing.
But
it's
so rushed. It's not, you miss it.
Well,
whereas Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, you spend the time learning something or exploring the mystery. Whereas it's the equivalent of like Indiana Jones trying to explain what he's hunting as he's running away from the boulder.
Well,
It's my analogy for it.
That, to me, goes back to the Jack Ryan thing, because, like, in The Hunt for Red October, which is the first Jack Ryan movie, it's very research the sub. Why would this sub be this way? Why would the captain be this way? Why would, there's a lot of that. There's getting into it, and there's certainly the sequence towards the end, which is a little more action oriented, but the bulk of that movie is sub-research and trying to get into the mind of Ramius and that kind of stuff. Whereas in, like, the later ones, like Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games, and certainly the one with Affleck, it's more of an action flick. So It's the same path. It's the same path, pathos of Da Vinci versus Angel and Demons versus Inferno.
I think it just, also, I would have much rather have seen Lost Symbol or this new one. Origins, from what I've read, Origin sounds more closer to the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons. It's all about like it's an atheist discovering the real reason of how we got here and where are we going.
Right.
Like the ultimate questions, right? For a religious perspective or even a non-religious perspective. That screams more than someone released a pathogen.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that's why they were trying to take the series, and it's failed. It failed miserably, but I think that's...
And they killed the series, as far as I'm concerned.
Unfortunately, probably, yeah. But
we'll
the
see
good news...
TV series is going to happen.
Right, but even if it doesn't, the good news is we have 2 really good movies, and in my opinion, an okay movie. Like, I don't dislike it as much as you do, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you by any long shot. Like, I was saying to Deb today, because I watched it again today this is the 3rd time I've seen Inferno. Mm-hmm. I saw it when I first bought it, and then I watched it randomly another night, and then to prepare for today, I watched it again, because it had been a while since I had seen it. And I said to Deb, even as exhausted as I am, that I actually found myself enjoying it for the first time today when I watched it.
You know who I liked?
Who?
I liked the dude who I don't remember the dude from Jurassic World who's like who fucks up the
helicopter. Is that who that is? I know who you're talking about. The head of the secret security service. I can't think of his name either, but yeah.
Something Khan, I think his name is.
Maybe, yeah.
I thought he was funny. I don't know if his character is supposed to be an Indian actor, because I think his name is Harry Sims in the book or in the movie. And then I think because the dialogue is so fucking clever and funny. Not to say an Indian guy can't say that. It just, the way that his character speaks is not how that actor looks, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised by his tongue-in-cheek sarcasm. I thought it was really fucking funny.
The opinions and reflections of Rico do not reflect the opinions and reflections of PodAskew. Thank you very much.
I wasn't trying to say anything bad. I was thrown off by his.
His name is Irfan Khan, if I'm saying that right, or Irfan Khan. My bad. And You're right. His character's name is Harry Sims.
Which in the book, that's my point. Is in the book he doesn't even have a name.
Okay. Well,
they just call him whatever the fuck he is, the Proctor or something.
Proctor's in Da Vinci Code.
They call him something specific in Inferno.
Okay, well, I didn't read the book. I didn't read the book, so I don't know. Felicity Jones, I thought, did a good job. I liked her character for being, like you said, the villainess. You know,
I think she was interesting. She was another interesting foil, and another good counterpoint. I still like the Italian one from the second one.
Yeah, honestly, for me, Sophie Navu's my favorite. But again, I like that movie the best, so it's probably why.
Sure.
But I also like the whole concept of her being the last Scion. You know, like it actually made it more interesting to me after the first time I saw it when I find that out, because when you go into and sorry for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but if you go into the Da Vinci Code, having never read the book or seen the movie, when she's introduced, you have no idea. And they guard it pretty well up until...
I knew it was coming. Well, actually, I hadn't read the Da Vinci Code until after I saw the movie. I had read Angels and Demons.
Okay.
But I kind of saw it coming. It was still like, I was thinking there's no way they're going to go this direction. And then once they start talking about offspring, I'm like, 100% she is Jesus' kid or great-grand kid. And also because Dogma did ruin that as well. I knew Scion was connected to that. So the Priory of Scion.
Well, the Priory of Scion,
the Priory of Scion, even if it doesn't translate to we're here to protect Jesus' lineage, it made me think they're going to go that direction.
Right, but it didn't mean it had to be her. That's my point.
Well, they wouldn't have introduced another... I don't know. I found it... I don't know. I just sort of saw it. Like...
Okay, well, also I'm sorry that you're more observant than I am.
Well, also because the whole Princess Sophie, I'm like, okay, princess, royalty. It's not just a grandfather being, oh, you're my little, like calling his granddaughter a nickname. Well, yeah,
but when
it was very...
When they start pointing that out, yes, but up until that point, like, okay, when she walked into the Louvre, did you think she was Jesus' relative?
Of course not.
That's my point.
Okay, but then like halfway through the movie, I'm like, there's something about this.
Right, but even then, once you finally know, and you go back and you watch scenes where, the drug dealer in the park, and, Langdon in the truck, and,
that actually, now that you mentioned, that's probably where I was like, she has some magic touch where she can get rid of his fucking claustrophobia.
Well, and it's interesting because, and I'm not alluding to anything, but my therapist does this thing where some of the stuff that I go through in my therapy is a thing called processing, and that's both sounds worse and is too complicated to get into tonight. But essentially, it is very physically demanding while not moving at all, if that makes any sense.
It's mental therapist or is this physical therapist?
Mental, but it is still very physically demanding in that it takes a lot out of your body physically.
Sure.
And when I'm done, she'll say, are you okay? And it's not just to me. This is apparently like a common thing. And one time I had this really bad headache that came on while I was doing it. And I don't know if it was related or not, but she did this thing where she squeezed my head in 3 different places. And then with fingers in front of my eyes, did a figure 8 shape. And my headache was gone instantly. Now, I'm not saying she has any kind of...
wired you, essentially.
Kind of, yeah, but it was really... And I'm not saying she has any religious powers or she's some scion or anything like that, but...
Is she the last scion?
Right. But I'm saying is, there's... there are ways to, press on pressure points and things like that to make headaches go away. I don't know if it would get rid of claustrophobia, but to relieve anxiety, for sure. Do you know what I mean? So... it was interesting that they were able to use those things until you knew for certain who she was. Do you know what I mean? That's all I'm saying.
I did like her sense of humor at the end where she tries to
step on water. Yeah.
And then it's maybe the wine will work out better for me when I can turn water into wine.
Yeah.
I thought I'm like, of course a French woman would say that.
Of course. So,
we're really not even talking about angels and demons that much.
Well, because Angels and Demons is just, it's a fine movie. It's certainly not the weakest of the 3, but there's not, to me, a whole lot of memorable moments. You know what I mean?
I think whereas Silas is a really memorable villain in the Da Vinci Code, I really I dug the assassin in the second one who's running around and fucking with all the priests and popes and
the cardinals.
The preparati, yeah. I thought his character was fascinating. I also really dug that whole sequence where Hanks and the German Swiss guard are in the vacuum sealed vault, basically, the library.
Oh, and he almost chokes out. Yeah.
And I love the line where Tom Hanks is looking at the dude. He's like, "Do you smoke?" He's like, "A little." It's like, "Well, you better sit down or you're
before
gonna
you pass
over.
out." Yeah.
And the funny thing is that actor who plays the Swiss guard actually auditioned for Silas, but was deemed too young. And then next movie got a lot of screen time.
Well, because it's a different character.
Yeah, I'm talking about the actor audition for Silas.
No, I get that, but I'm saying that being it's a different character, he probably fit the role better. Is all I'm saying.
Well, he was deemed too young, but Ron Howard's your audition was really good. I'm going to try and put you in a movie someday. And then,
and he does.
Because I don't even think that character in the book is featured as much. Also, I like the guy who played the Italian, head of the, Vatican FBI or something.
Yeah, I liked him. No, not Stellan Skarsgård, the other guy, right? Because he was
the Italian goatee.
Oh, the Italian FBI, you said, right? Not the Vatican. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree.
I was sad that he died, but
no, I was too. I liked his character. It's a good movie and there's good moments, but it's not. There's not a sequence like the thing with Teabing and things like that, or the meeting with the council discussing what they're going to do next, or Silas attacking the nun. When he finds out that she lied to him. There's not sequences as many to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I don't know. I dug, I really kind of dug the fountain death.
That was good. That was a good, well, not death, because they stopped it, right? Yeah.
I liked the whole air one where they like puncture the lungs and like blood gets spat in Hank's face.
My favorite moments, not just seeing the behind scenes, but was like when Robert's talking to Patrick and when he's discussing things with the woman about what could be going on, or even at the end when he's talking to the guy who becomes the Camerlengo for the new Pope at the very end, if you recall.
Yeah.
Or not Camerlengo. Camerlengo's only when the Pope's passed away, but you know what I'm talking about. The guy that's
the second best, yeah.
Yeah. Where, they're talking about, he's an old man, but at the same time, like, that whole sequence, like those interactions to me in the Angels and Demons movie were more impactful than the running around and the blowing up of cars and, that kind of stuff.
You actually remind me of a minor situation. Because Ewan McGregor is the bad guy in Angels and Demons. Yeah. He's the one who's paying the assassin to capture these cardinals, torture them, murder them, all that shit.
Right.
Which means he's also the one who blew up the van.
Yep. Or I think it was a Jetta, but yeah.
Whatever the fuck it was. He is how the fuck did he have the time? Which means he must have done it far in advance. Before like the whole.
Or he could have arranged it with somebody else. He could have had a third party that didn't need screen time to put the bomb on the car.
Yeah, but I doubt it. That's my point.
Oh,
he
sure.
would not have been telling too many people, that, oh yeah, I'm doing all this so I can become the youngest Pope ever.
Well, not only that, but I think, but he could have presented it differently to it, like the bomb guy. I mean, like, I just need you to blow this car up or set this car to blow up once the ignition's turned on. Like, that's all you know what I mean? Like, and if you get some scumbag who just doesn't give a shit, then he's not going to care about why or how, just he'll wire the car. You know what I mean? I don't know, but
I liked how Ewan's character went through a whole arc because he's charming, very friendly.
Yeah.
He's sympathetic. And then you just see him. I also, because I had read the book, I saw it. I knew the ending coming a mile away. But I loved how he was like that part where he thinks he's going into the room of all the cardinals and he's basically thinking, I know they're going to elect me as the new Pope and I'm going to have to act surprised. And they're all glaring at him and he just slowly realizes, oh shit. And then he like goes and instead of just being like, all right, you fucking got me. He's like, fuck you guys. I want to set myself on fire.
Yeah. Well, that part, I agree. That whole sequence was good. But again, and that's probably why I like the Da Vinci Code better. Because it's all good and it's all enjoyable and it's well done. None of it grabs me like those sequences I keep referencing in the Da Vinci Code with, Teabing and the council and so forth and so on. I just think I like it better, and that doesn't make either of us right or wrong. We've said that 100 times at this point, so.
Well, I think we should wrap up, but I had a limerick.
Oh yeah, you've been doing these limericks on Twitter. Did you want to do one live now? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I had one that I forgot to do for Tom Hanks, which means I might try and make it a reoccurring thing. I might try and do like a limerick, maybe not every episode, but like if we're talking about someone or if a certain movie franchise and we talk about an actor.
Something important, sure.
So I got one for Tom Hanks. So this correlates. There once was an actor named Hanks who spent Private Ryan shooting tanks. He solved Da Vinci's Code, walked the Perdition Road, and we'll always give him our thanks.
CJ here with a few thank yous and let you know how you can get in touch with and follow the show and us. If you want to agree with or yell at us, follow Rico, me, and the show on Twitter. The show is at PodAskew, Rico is at RantsRico, and I'm at M_Blade. Listen to PodAskew on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you find podcasts. Please don't forget to rate and comment. We want to thank our logo designer and show friend Mike for his work on our wonderful logo. You can contact him for artwork via email at logomike80@gmail.com. Again, that's logomike80@gmail.com. Thank you to Dubbed in English for our opening theme music, 96 Reasons. Thank you to Samuel Lemons for our closing music, Theme Askew. You can find Sam on Twitter at Samuel Lemons, all one word, and his music on SoundCloud at www.soundcloud.com/Samuel-Lemons. Finally, our biggest thank you is to you, everyone, for listening. Rico and I really appreciate your time and look forward to bringing you another episode soon.
It's the ancient Illuminati thread, destruction of Vatican City through light.